Welcome back to AgriTalk Online from Commodity Classic in Nashville, Tennessee. Very happy to have with us Ron Lamberty, Senior Vice President for ACE, the American Coalition for Ethanol. Some exciting things happening, Ron. We're finally so close to E15. We were talking about this with folks at the National Ethanol Conference last week. I mean, it's close enough we can almost feel it, and hopefully we'll see it soon. How long is it going to take, you think, before we see it at our pumps?
Well, I think in very small doses we'll probably see it. We could see it as little as a month or so from now in some places. You know, there are a few places, a handful of them that are selling E15 right now, but it's as a flexible fuel as they have to. The next step required is going to be registration of the ethanol plants. When you have a new fuel, the fuels they make the new fuel out of have to be registered. Gasoline's one of them, and you have to say we're going to now change the recipe from up to 10 to now up to 15, and then the same thing with ethanol is all registered to go up to 10%, but we'll now have to say they'll go up to 15, which is it's paperwork that has to be done, but they submit that to EPA. EPA approves it, and then the next step is to see if anybody wants to blend it. And then once they do, I think what will happen, if you remember back when we had E10 and it was coming in new everywhere, and there was all this talk, we'll never get it, it'll take a long time. But the economics were such that as soon as somebody tried E10, they looked up at the price signs, the customers did, they went in there, tried it, noticed that it was the same as their other fuel, and they kept using it. And I think we'll see some of that happen with E15, probably in the Midwest area first, and then the rest of the country I'm sure will follow eventually.
What will you think the impact of E15 be on gas prices?
Well, I think any time you're able to get more options into a marketplace, it should moderate the prices. I wouldn't say they're going to go down because you're still talking 85 to 90% minimum of gasoline in there, and crude oil's still over. I haven't checked today, but over $100 again. So that drives most of the price. Then ethanol is the thing to replace it, and if you can replace more than 10%, then that gives a little bit more room, where right now everybody who can blend E10 is probably blending it because it's 85 cents a gallon less than gasoline. Now if you can blend 15, you're talking about another 40 cents, 4.5, 5 cents a gallon at the pump that it can make a difference. And so if an independent marketer is there, and they're the guys who are going to move first, and they want to maybe get some attention and say, I'm going to sell this new fuel that EPA just approved. The others might say, yeah, go ahead. There's all kinds of issues with it. But, eventually the cars will start coming into his lot, and the others will say, well, I guess we better do it too.
The price shock we're all getting right now at the pump, what we like to point out is, hey, it would be worse if it wasn't for ethanol in our fuel supply.
Oh, yeah, if you imagine how much, 10%, roughly 9 to 10% of fuel just disappearing. After Hurricane Katrina, we lost like 5% of our overall fuel supply. I think we lost like 15% for a week or so, and then for the next couple months it was about 5%. And that was when we went from being down in the low $1.20, $1.30 to $2.50, $3 where we are still today. So you take that situation where it was it wasn't even long term, it was a few months where we were down 5%. It just shifted. We just shifted where prices were on fuel in the United States. So we think just the supply and demand thing would help by being able to use this stuff. And then the other part about it is it's actually a moderator on ethanol prices, because if we get to the point where everybody's buying ethanol, the price gets too high, they can always drop back down to 10, and then the ethanol producers will have to adjust their prices. So it puts more competition in the marketplace, which ultimately is going to be good for drivers.
People hear me talk all the time about the benefits of ethanol, and one of the things I point out now to those that are critical and those that are opponents of ethanol, I say, do you realize how important ethanol is to our fuel supply now, and where we would be if you pulled that out?
Yeah, well, and the other part about it is if they let people like you and me use E15, that makes more room for the people who don't want to use any ethanol at all. It actually helps the entire complex, so to speak, that if we have that much fuel available to us, guys like us who maybe want to use E15, that means in order to meet the other regulations that are out there, there's going to be more people who can still buy gas without ethanol in it if they want to. When it comes right down to it, we're in favor of people having more choices. We'd like to have people have more choices than just 15%, but the vehicles are a limiting factor there, because when they have choices, we find they usually buy our fuel.
So 2001 and newer model years will be able to use E15. They don't have to have a flex fuel vehicle. That'll be there for everyone with those model year cars.
Right, cars and trucks, cars and light trucks, 2001 and newer. EPA, those are what they tested. That's what they've approved. So those vehicles can use them. Every pump that's selling E15 will have an orange label on there that's required by by EPA. And so people should be able to identify it pretty easily. And small engines, they should use E10. They should, if they want to use straight gasoline, they should. And I think there's a lot of people that have said, well, this thing, it's not big enough. It's 150% of the size of an octane sticker, and people know where octane stickers are. So it's big enough, and people will notice. And people are smart enough to not put it in what it's not supposed to be in. But the nice thing is, those of us who want to buy it will be able to find it pretty easily, hopefully maybe by this time next year there will be so much of it we won't have anything to talk about. But I think you're going to see it sort of start out one little spot at a time, and then everybody around that person will have to join in to compete.
Does this help us break through the so-called blend wall?
Right, this is the blend wall, where this is the, 10% is the blend wall right now. The blend wall actually came closer to us faster than we thought, because at the same time our ethanol production was going up to meet the renewable fuel standard, fuel use was dropping. Gas got more expensive, people started using less, people started driving more fuel-efficient vehicles. If they had two in their house, they didn't drive the big one, they drove the little one. And so like last year, we sold something like 125 billion gallons of gasoline, which means 10% is 12.5. And meanwhile, we've got capacity to do, I think, close to 14. So, ultimately what this all is helping us do is, when we started the program, we were a net importer of 62% of all of our energy products. We're down to now where most of the stuff that we use in the United States is from the United States. We're actually, it's below 50% now. So finding the other products, finding more fuel in the Gulf, finding oil in North Dakota, all of the different things are certainly adding to that, but we're a big chunk of our ability to be able to take care of our own fuel supplies, and ultimately that's an energy security, national security issue. We think we're helping out on a lot of areas, and I think most of the people who buy our fuel think we are too. So,
ethanol is definitely making a difference. Good to see you. Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, good to have you.
Ron Lamberty, Senior Vice President for the American Coalition for Ethanol, joining us here at Commodity Classic in Nashville, Tennessee. Stay with us. More to come on AgriTalk Online.